Well, now, I imagine everybody here has chanted the precepts a very, very large number of times. Is there anybody here, as a matter of interest, who has a complete grasp of the real meaning of each word in those precepts? I'm seeing some shaking heads.
Hello.
Um, the one that I suppose, I mean, Rosemary, for example, you've chanted the precepts many times, haven't you?
That many, but I think you're more likely to have a complete knowledge than any of the rest of us, James.
Well, I would hope so. That's kind of one thing that I do kind of say that I can sit here and do. But what surprised me rather in the case of Rosemary, and it would apply to me as well, is that when lawyers make a solemn declaration that they undertake to do, and samadhyami is it's an undertaking, undertake a heavy, heavy thing for lawyers. And when I asked about the complete understanding, I noticed various heads shaking, including Rosemary's. So there we are. When it comes to chanting undertakings in Pali, maybe even lawyers are slightly more willing to undertake to do something where they aren't absolutely sure what they're undertaking. But there we are. At the end of this, you will be able to enter into these undertakings knowing exactly what you're doing.
I must admit, I feel uncomfortable in groups when Usha will use the Pali version, and if I don't have any kind of translation in front of me, I it bothers me. It bothers me very much. So
Actually, I'm very relieved to hear you say that, actually, Rosemary, that even in a Buddhist chanting group, your lawyer's training is there behind you. A little bit uncomfortable about saying something when you don't know what you're saying. But at least for the precepts, um, this difficulty will hopefully be removed for you all for all time. Um, it's the word, well, two words together in Pali, Panchasila, the five. It's commonly translated as precepts, but actually the word sila, um, more strictly speaking, I'll get even a bit further back in a moment, means a virtue, virtuous conduct. And it started off life in Sanskrit with a shila. And Sheila, the actual meaning of it was a characteristic behavior, the way you normally behaved. So, and it can produce a couple of interesting compounds. Let me just call up hang on, I'm just going to call up the iPad for you. Nearly with you. There we are. Share screen. Share screen. Done. Okay, is the screen shared for you? Can you see? Okay. So, oops. The Panchasila. Pancha, as we all know, means five. Sila, so saying the old meaning in Sanskrit or Vedic, it was Shila, meaning a characteristic behavior, not just a way of acting, but a regular, characteristic way of acting. And then by extension, it came to mean proper behavior. and we generally think of it as ethical conduct or moral conduct. The first time, before I actually discovered that fact, I saw this expression. We know the word papa, meaning evil, sinful. And I saw a person's conduct, which is in Sanskrit actually, being described as papa shila, which I thought was a contradiction in terms. Then I realized, of course, that was using the older meaning of shila. Somebody acted in a characteristically evil way, and he was always like that. But in Pali, it's just now come to mean ethical conduct. Incidentally, in case you're wondering, we have the five silas, the five virtues. Oops. Why is it? If you talk about the five virtues, you have pancha, five, and in the plural, it's a neuter noun, so the pancha silani, and you can make a compound of it, which then it's expressed in the neuter singular. So the pancha, if you said pancha silani, that would be the same as saying five virtues. You separately talk about virtues numbers 1 to 5. Whereas the panchasilam, it's a singular, it's more like the five-fold virtue, or the set of five virtues. It's rather the same as we say the triple gem. For the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we talk about the tiratanam. Rather than tini ratani, three gems, it's the tiratanam, putting it into one compound word and then putting it into the singular. There's the difference between the three gems and triple gem. So the Panchasila would be the five-fold morality, or the five-fold ethics, something like that. So Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. This is from this Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. This is in the ablative. Panatipata is the taking of life. So I'll explain that in more detail in a moment. It's expressed in the ablative form because you are taking you are undertaking the training rule to refrain from the taking of life. That veramani is refraining. So what you're refraining from then goes in the ablative. That's why it's panatipata, from pana atipata. We have our root tat, which slightly inconveniently means both to fall and to fly. It's always been a bit of a puzzle to me why the same root can mean fall and fly, but there it is. In this case, it means to fall, and it's preceded by the prefix ati. So ati means over, like stepping over an obstacle or something like that, or crossing over a river. It also means excessively, a bit like in English, we can use over. You step over something, and you can overdo it. You can overexert. So ati has both of those meanings in Sanskrit and Pali, the same as over in English. But here it has the meaning of being over and falling upon somebody. We have this expression in English, the old expression, falling upon your enemies, coming down on them from a great height. So it was originally meant falling upon as any kind of assault or aggression. So the verbal noun is atipata, atipatati, verbal noun atipata. The atipata, from or against whom, so pana. Pana, we all know the, oops, my pen's going funny again. We all know the Sanskrit word, so pen's playing up in, prana. Prana is simply the Pali form of prana, from which itself comes from the an, meaning to breathe, plus pra plus an, I should say, pra plus ana. So it just means breath, breathing or breath. Of course, it's had acquired a much wider range of meaning in yoga, and it becomes the vital force. In Pali here, it's pana simply means living being. So pani is more a living being. Pana is more just life, in the sense of having breath, being with breath is so life. So the panati, I'll be right with you, Simon. So panatipata is falling upon, attacking, or assaulting life. Come in, please, Simon.
Yeah, with regard to the root for breath, presumably anapana, as in anapanasati, means in-breathing and out-breathing.
It does, yes.
So, but for the word for breath in general, they decided, or somebody decided, that it was the out-breath that was the important one, the breathing forth, the pana, rather than the ana, presumably.
I think that's right. If you go back to Moni Williams, the distinction isn't absolute. But now we're on this root un, we'll look at this point that Simon has just made. So the root is un, right? And it makes a verbal noun by lengthening the a, so ana. So ana on its own means just breathing without indicating breathing in or out. Now, you can distinguish them. You can add a disambiguation that doesn't quite work, and I'll explain that in a moment. You have the prefix a, generally meaning towards, and you have the verbal prefix pra, meaning away or forth. In this particular case, because we're not looking at pa, we're looking at apa. So a towards, apa off or away. So we've got a ana, breathing towards, breathing in, plus apa ana, in breathing, out breathing. Apa. And the reason I said the disambiguation didn't quite work, it's because when you have the prefix a in front of a word that itself begins with a or a, they merge into a single a. So that was an attempted disambiguation. We're still left with ana. So you think of anapana as ana, apa ana, in breathing, away breathing, in breathing, out breathing. but it's the same ana as in prana, which is prana, fourth breathing, which looks as if it means breathing out, but in fact it has come to mean breathing generally, and just having breath. So if it's a common expression, for example, in Sanskrit, if you sacrifice your life, you say, you talk about pranans tyajati, you lay down your life, you sacrifice literally your breath. So in the sense of sacrificing your life, it's often used in the plural in Sanskrit. So that's the anapana. That's the explanation of anapana. Ana, apana, anapana. Jeremy appears.
Yes, I was just wondering with the atipata, that's you say in the ablative, from the taking of life.
Yes.
There would be alternative forms, would there, for amha and asma as an alternative to ah?
Exactly so. The answer is yes. And it's just, why is this one used here? Well, it kind of just is. It's the one that's become normal to use in this circumstance. So if you were chanting it in unison, it would sound very odd. Of course, if you use one of the alternative forms of the ablative, panatipa tasma, so I wouldn't recommend trying that in a group chant. You just muck it all up. But from a purely linguistic, grammatical point of view, it would be equally correct and would make no difference at all. So yeah, you are correct on that point, Jeremy. So literally, you are falling upon breath. The atipata, falling upon breath, has come to mean the taking of life. You're falling upon, attacking, or assaulting breath in its meaning of life. I was present at a very interesting discussion that got going. In fact, it was in November at a retreat in Green Street, led by Chris Murray Jones, where we were looking at the language of this precept, and we were talking about interrupting people while they're speaking. And I don't know whether it was intended waggishly or genuinely. It might these things can sometimes be both at the same time on an occasion like that. But if you interrupt somebody while they're speaking, are you guilty of a panatipata? You see, because you are falling upon their breath. You are committing an act that is blocking their speech, that is blocking their flow of speech. I think I'll be right with you, Simon. I think the answer probably is that if you just look at the pure words themselves, it could just about bear that meaning. Though if you are so absent-minded or indeed discourteous as to interrupt somebody, you're probably not in breach of this precept. There's just an entertaining thought. Simon, please come in.
Yeah, I'm not having this one about Atipata. For three reasons, really.
Well, goodness me, we've already got three reading. Carry on then.
The first one is that it's about breath in the sense of life. And so if it was about, I mean, this was part of a general thing, wasn't it? About if you're beastly or harmful to somebody, then you're falling upon them in some sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's only ever used in the sense of killing, so far as I can see, in the rest of the suttas. They talk about somebody going up and down the Ganges with a sharpened disc, making one heap of flesh of all living beings, and so on. Also,
thereby doing no wrong. The person who is I forget the name of it's in the Digha Nikaya 2, I think. I forget the name of the person who advocated that.
And there's also the fact that the breath was considered to be life itself, and so it's about stopping breath in effect. And also, I would suspect, I don't know, but I would imagine that Atipata was came down into the Pali fully lexicalized. And so, to talk about falling upon something would be like, I don't know, understanding that we don't stand under something.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. I am convinced by what you have said, and indeed, I think that I didn't think anyone took it terribly seriously that that Panatipata included stopping somebody in mid-flow as he was talking. It's just an observation. If you look at these words in isolation on their own, it could be construed to mean that. But as you say, lexicalized, and therefore that's just the meaning it's come to have. That whether you beat somebody within an inch of their life, whether that counts as panatipata, I would no. Well, Francis seems to be heavily against that view.
Well, it depends where you read, but they define it very, very specifically that something must be alive. You must have the intention to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
And you must then do the action that causes it, and then the thing must die. And if it hasn't died, then you haven't, strictly speaking, broken the rule that you have taken life.
Okay, so you might have broken a lot of other rules, but not this particular rule.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you for that. Is that in the commentaries to it?
Well, it's maybe in the commentaries, but it's also, I'm sure that it'll be in the rules for monks because they define it incredibly carefully.
Okay, right, yeah.
As to whether you've broken it, yeah.
Okay, so thanks for that then, Francis. Jeremy, did you have a point? Your hand was up a moment ago.
No, it's just I looked in your explanatory glossary, and you've got a sort of a note on this, and you say for this alternative interpretation, there is no canonical authority. So perhaps that can be our guide.
Okay, is that what I put in the explanatory glossary?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, right.
Entry in there. You refer to this alternative possible interpretation, but say there's no canonical authority for it.
Goodness me, I'd forgotten how correct I was being in the explanatory. Thank you for reminding me, Jeremy.
But also, James, it can be a kindness to interrupt people sometimes.
In certain circumstances,
prevent them breaking sila. If you're going to interrupt them when they see they made something untruthful or unkind, if you interrupt them, then that's a kindness.
Okay, I'm absolutely convinced by the comments that have been made, and the reminder of how it's expressed in the monastic rule, and indeed not all interruption is wrong, for the very reason that Francis is good, if you has said. So panatipata veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Veramani. It's from the root ram, which has two meanings. It means to take. It means rest or ease, and then by extension, pleasure. In Veramani, it's slightly anomalous formation, but don't let that bother you. We have viram or virama in both Sanskrit and Pali means resting or ceasing. In fact, in oops. I'm just writing this. We have the Sanskrit word tat, meaning that, as in tat tvamasi, that thou art. If you want to write tat in Sanskrit, in Devanagari, I should say, what I've written here, this is the ta letter, but there is the inherent ah there. So what I've actually written here is tata, not tat. This would be pronounced tata in Sanskrit. Of course, in modern Marathi and Hindi, anyone seeing that would say tat. In order to take the vowel away, the final vowel, you write this little sign under the, that's called the virama in Sanskrit. You remember that from school, don't you, Shalaka? The virama,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yes.
So if you write this little stroke under the t there, that means it's no longer tata, but tat. And the word used for that is virama, meaning resting or stopping. In other words, the voice stops at the consonant without the final ah following. So I say if you wrote it without the virama, like that, it would be tata. So the viramati means to stop, to rest back from something, a bit like to desist. So virama, stopping, an alternative kind of derivative word, a slightly anomalously formed derivative is veramani. You can see veramani, resting back, desisting from, stopping. So what you're undertaking to do is to desist from it. Sikkhapadang samadhiyami. In Sanskrit, learning or teaching is shiksha, and in Pali it is, as you'd expect, sikkha. Means teaching generally, any kind of teaching, but in this context, it specifically means training, as in the training rules, the discipline that you voluntarily subject yourself to. The word in Sanskrit, shikshya, is one who is undergoing training or a disciple of somebody. The people mostly from the Punjab that we know as the Sikhs, that's from that same word. So it's just the Punjabi and Hindi form of Shiksha is just Sikh because they were a trainee or a pupil of Guru Nanak. So the Guru Nanak ke Sikh was the disciples, the trainees of Guru Nanak, and they've still maintained that name for their religion and religious identity, the Sikhs. Shalaka, your hand is raised.
Yes, yes. I am a bit lost at Veramani. So, what is the original meaning of the root ram?
Okay, right. Yes, I'll explain that then. So we've got the original, we've got the ram, the root ram, ramati. That means to rest, or by extension to take pleasure in something. But in virama, it has the meaning of stopping, resting, just not doing it, desisting from doing something. And with the prefix vi, that's what we call it, the separative prefix, meaning away from. So you rest away from, you desist from it, you refrain from it, you stop yourself, you keep yourself away from it, stop yourself doing it, viramati. Now the form veramani is a bit of an unusual formation. You'd expect to see virama, but veramani, which is it's found in Pali. It was an anomalous formation in Pali, then found its way back into Buddhist Sanskrit, not regular Sanskrit. But just this is one of these slight anomalies. Just accept that it's like that. But so viramani, the idea of refraining, desisting. not holding yourself back from doing it.
Okay.
Is
Thank you.
that clear now, Shalika?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
right. So Sikkhapadam, so the Sikkha Shiksha training, Pada, this is a word with a number of different meanings. It means a going. It also means words. Now we've got the Dhammapada, which is the words of the Dhamma, and in this context means the training words, namely the rule expressed in words for the purpose of training. So that's how we get to Sikkhapadam. So we can translate pada here as a rule. So,
James, what's the word for foot? Because it's similar, isn't it?
It is. The word for foot is the same word, but with a long R. The word for foot is pada.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
However, just to further complicate matters, you can also have, this is particularly in Sanskrit, you can have a word ending in pad, not even pada, meaning a foot. So a dvipad, I'm looking at Sanskrit now. A dvipad literally is a 2-foot, which in Greek becomes a biped. And the dvipad in Pali and theory, dipad, exists only, it doesn't exist throughout all its declensional forms, but it does exist in the genitive plural. What's the genitive plural of dipad? Come on, you've all chanted it thousands of times. Sambuddho dipadang seto, dipadang seto. Nisimno cheva majjime. So this dipadang seto, the best of bipeds. Bipeds here means human beings. So, don't let that put you off. That's a rare use, but normally just the ordinary word for foot is pada.
Okay.
Now, samadhyami, it's not just agreeing to or adopting or undertaking. If you use undertaking in the ordinary colloquial sense rather than a more formal legal sense. So what's happened with samadhyami? This is it's our root da to give, and with the prefix a, it means to take, like gum to go, gum to come, da to give, da to take. Here we've got with the prefix some, samada, first person singular, I samadhyami. You are taking it upon yourself. It's more than just accepting or adopting the rule. The shape of this verb suggests that you are actually absorbing it into yourself. It's not just an imposed discipline, it's the absorption into oneself. You are taking it so that it becomes part of you. You are taking it into yourself. So first precept, panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhyami. The veramani sikkhapadang is a compound refraining training rule. So it's treated as one noun, grammatically as one noun, though it's a compound of 3. So is it clear so far? So if we just break that compound, samadhiyami, I undertake, I take into myself, undertake what? The padam samadhiyami, I undertake the rule. What kind of rule? Sikkhapadam, the training rule. Training rule in respect of what? Veramani sikkhapadam, the desisting training rule. There's this three element compound here. So before we move on to the next one, are there any doubts or comments on this?
James, can I just ask about the prefix sam?
Yes.
So what is that generally?
The prefix sam is some. It is directly cognate with the Greek prefix sin, and also very conveniently, it, as the s often did into Latin, it morphed into a k. So the some prefix is exactly the Latin co or con.
Ah, con. Okay.
So it's the same one. And if anyone were to ask, well, what is the exact precise meaning of the Latin prefix co or con? It'd be rather difficult to give a comprehensive. It's the same comprehensive definition of it. The general meaning of it is together or with. Sometimes it has a sense of, ironic that I use this word now, completion, because the Latin word for full is pletus, and so the state of being full, fullness, could just be pletion, the state of being full. Yeah. But completion, what does the com add to it? It emphasizes the final ending of something. It just, so the emphasis there is on the fact that there's been some process of getting there. When we talk about complete, that means, yes, it's finished, full, but you're focusing on the idea of looking back on a task that is now done. You put the seal on it. And it has a fairly wide range of meanings in Sanskrit and Pali, but I don't think really substantially wider than the same than the range of meanings of co and con in Latin. And the word company, incidentally, can anyone break down the meaning of the word company? Okay, Simon.
Bread.
Exactly so. Panis, you see that? So panis is bread. And so your companis is the person with whom you break bread. And that is where we get our modern English word company. So when you see this prefix some in a Pali or Sanskrit word, you can't automatically think, oh, there's always an exact one-word definition for it. It's always got this idea of either together or completion, or sometimes it's just an emphatic. So moving on now to the next one.
James?
Yes, please, Simon.
Could I just ask about the samadhiyami? If you ignore the sam for a minute, like undertaking, but just taking, if you were to just see dhyami, that looks as if it would be in for being forgiving. That would look as though that was in the passive. So I am given. So why does adiyami. I mean, is there an adadati as well for taking? I think there is, isn't there? So why does it look as though it's in the passive?
Okay. This in Sanskrit, it would have to be adadami. Sanskrit would not allow adiyami. This is just a colloquial development within Pali. If you were translating this back into Sanskrit, you would have to say samadadami. So samadhyami wouldn't be allowed in Sanskrit. But I agree with you. It does look like a passive. Say there's one little twist there, but in the passive it would be, I think it would be with a long e, deity. It is, that's right. Deity it is given. So if it were I am being taken, would be samadhyami. I'm virtually certain that's right. I'll check that.
I thought there was potential there for a pun on the modern English colloquialism. I'm quite taken with this precept.
I think we might, yes, that's an entertaining one that I think we might have to put that in the same category as panatipata, meaning interrupting somebody when he's speaking. So adinnadana. And this should be relatively free of difficulty. So we have the back to our root da, meaning to give. Da, if it formed its past participle regularly, which it doesn't, it would be given, would be data. In fact, in Latin, it does form its past participle regularly, datus, from which we get in English. In Latin, it would be data, in English, data, things given, therefore information given. But data, in both Sanskrit and Pali, you have it's either datta or dinna are the two past participles from the root da. And for example, we have was Devadatta, was that the name of the rogue monk who tried to get that wild elephant to attack the Buddha? So Devadatta has rather the same meaning as Theodore, gift of God, God-given, Devadatta. In this particular word, the form used is dimna. They both mean the same. So the adinna, therefore, with the negating just means ungiven. We all know that the verbal noun from da is dana. So our well-known word dana simply means giving. It's the verbal noun from the root of da. Cognate as, with donations, effectively the same word. So dana. So just as da, give, ada, to take, so dana, giving, adana, taking. So the adinna adana literally means the ungiven taking, meaning the taking of what is not given. And the rest, Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyani, is the same. The next one is Kamesu Michachara, and in the ablative Kamesu Michachara. The way it's, I think, I'm just dawned on me as I was going through this that there could be an error in our chanting book. Let me just. Although the chanting book has been edited, our Samatha Chanting Book has been edited with meticulous care, there could be an error here that doesn't affect how we chant it. In our chanting book, by the way, this text up here that I'm showing you something on the screen without showing it to you. There we are. Can you see now the printed form? This block of text here, I copied and pasted from our chanting book that I converted from PDF to Word. And I've just checked now in our printed, and in our printed book, it is written exactly like this. Micha chara. It's intended to be micha achara, which then by sandhi becomes micha chara. It comes out the same, but where it's misleading is that the placing of the hyphen there, you see just above my cursor, micha chara. Let me just enlarge it a bit. The placing of that hyphen there is slightly misleading because it suggests word number one, micha, word number two, chara. In fact, it's micha achara. In pronunciation, in any event, the final R of the first word and the initial R of the second one would merge into one long R anyway. So it doesn't make any difference the way to the way we pronounce it. But this just could mislead you into thinking that there's the word chara. It's not. On its own, without the sandhi, it would be achara. Now, achara is just a common word meaning conduct. From the char, to go, acharati, to conduct oneself, to go, to behave in a certain way. If you take off the achara, meaning conduct, and by extension, good conduct, correct conduct. If you make that word into with a ya at the end instead of an acharya, that would mean a person who deals with or is expert in something. So acharya is somebody who is well versed in conduct. It could also mean a teacher, the person to whom one goes. Acharya, under the phonetics of Thai, becomes ajan. Acharya. So in Thai, what they do, they often drop off the final syllable, so it becomes achar. If a Thai word ends in a r, that morphs into an n, and an intervocalic ch becomes a j. That's how it doesn't look like it on the face of it, but acharya, in Sanskrit acharya, in Pali acharya, becomes ajan in the Thai pronunciation. That's the one we all know as the honorific for a senior monk. Anyway, in this context, yeah, in the explanatory notes that I've done for you, that's the way that it should be done, with the sandhi vigraha, the sandhi taken out. Todd, did you have your hand up a moment ago?
Yeah, I did. It's just kind of I guess I have two thoughts on this. One is that achara and chara are really not so different in the sense that chara is kind of walking about.
Yeah,
So that also extends naturally into behavior. I mean,
yeah.
no, you wouldn't really, reading it like that, you wouldn't really get a mistake about you wouldn't get a mistaken impression about the, about the meaning of the precept. And the other thing is, written like this in the context of the chanting book would probably wind up being more confusing, like in terms of like actually using the chanting book to chant.
It would turn out to be more confusing, but there is a remedy. And I'll just deal with the remedy first, then come back to your first point. There is a remedy for that, which is used in the transliteration of Sanskrit and Pali,
Just
to write the circumflex.
yeah.
And certainly in the Monier-Williams Sanskrit dictionary, you see the use made of the circumflex to indicate that there's a merger of two vowels. Um, okay, I agree that it might get a little bit complex to do that in our chanting book. But then on the other hand, you know, that wouldn't have been past Lance Cousins. And Lance Cousins would have known all about putting in a circumflex there, and he would have known it as a routine way of doing it. And it was he who was. I think I'm right in saying, am I, Francis, that Lance was behind the original editing and preparing the text of our chanting book.
I'm not 100% sure. Probably, I mean, he was probably involved. I think it was mainly Charles.
Ah, right, okay,
Charles, and yeah, but you could
right.
ask him. Yeah, from the
Okay, but
person asked.
anyway, Charles also would have been well aware of the use of the circumflex. I don't know. Maybe a decision was made not just to get too linguistically and eruditely complex with those who weren't as concerned as we all are in this room with the niceties of Pali.
Mm.
But on your point, Todd, that if you had put chara on its own, there and mitcha chara, it would have been unambiguous. Well, in broad terms, I tend to say yes. You are right. However, I do not recall, I'm always open to being shown that I'm wrong here, but I do not recall ever seeing the word chara on its own, meaning conduct in the sense of whether you are behaving correctly or in correctly. I don't think I have. I think there's always the ah in front of it when you're talking about how you're behaving in a moral kind of sense. And for example, the word for bad behavior, this is michachara, wrong conduct. The general word for bad behavior is just is it's not dushchara, it's durachara. The durachara means just bad misbehavior. So yeah, you're right. But again, as a matter of usage, I don't think you'd see chara on its own, just meaning conduct with a moral tone to what's being said. And mitya, Sanskrit mithya, just means wrong or false. It's could be cognate with our English word miss, as in misconduct. It's likely to be cognate with it. So possibly, but Micha and Musa. So now we've got on the next one, we've got Musavada. We have the root. So we have the root vad, to speak or to say, as very often happens when you make a verbal noun with the addition of an a to the root. If there's a short a followed by a single syllable, sorry, a single consonant, short a followed by a single consonant in the root, more often than not, that will lengthen to a. So that's how we get vada, which is simply the verbal noun of vad. So it means speaking or saying. It also means teaching or doctrine at the end of a compound. So, for example, the Theravada is the doctrine of the elders. And you find in, for example, Anattavada is the doctrine of anatta, for example. So you'll often see the vada as the final member of a compound, meaning the doctrine of something. Here it just has its basic ordinary meaning of saying or speaking. So musavada, false speaking. And that is simple enough. Now for the one about intoxicants. I don't know whether anyone else has read anything about it or seen anything more from more modern research about it. And that's the exact meanings of the words sura and mereya. And we know that they are some kind of form of in intoxicants, but I don't think that modern scholarship or even Hindu scholarship has worked out exactly what they are. I could be wrong about that. We know that there's some kind of intoxicating drink, but as far as I know, we aren't sure exactly what. Madhya, which is madhya in Sanskrit, could be cognate with our English word mead, as in honey wine. In fact, you have miod is the Russian word for honey, and the d became a l in Latin. So melis, honey, miel in French. So there's likely to have been something like honey wine. Simon.
Yeah, is that from madhu, honey? So it's like a honey drink, or is it from the mad bit, which we see in pamada? So like a maddening drink.
I'm just wondering whether there was just some confusion even back in the ancient language between the maddening drink and the honey drink. One is tempted to say that, but as against that, I'll see whether I can find anything more about it in the break. As against that, Sanskrit and Pali were normally the native speakers of the language so clearly distinguished between the aspirates and the non-aspirates that you tend generally not to get one merging by accident into the other. I mean, even in the speech of modern India, especially the northern parts of modern India, I mean, in Shalaka's native speech, although the English ear or the European ear generally might find it a bit difficult to distinguish in da and da ta, for the Indian ear, they are two completely different sounds. And the Indian, the native, especially North Indian speaker, would not confuse those sounds any more than a native English speaker. would confuse between tanks and thanks, because the t and the th sound, they're two completely different sounds for us. So equally, the aspirate and the non-aspirate are different sounds for the Indian speaker.
Which aspirate are you talking about?
Which
Which aspirate are you talking about in that?
Here, the aspirate I'm talking about would be the d, would be madhya or mada, madhya or madhya.
I thought it looked a little bit like some kind of future passive, but of course it wouldn't be in the passive anyway, would it?
It wouldn't, no. Yeah, I mean, a good example of a future passive there, similar one would be Dhamma, Purisa Dhamma Sarathi Sati Dhamma, means needing to be tamed. That's another wonderful example about the importance of getting these aspirates right, because you have a Dhamma, the bronca, lungbro, meaning requiring to be tamed, as against the Dhamma. So not every English ear will distinguish those perfectly. The Indian ear would have no problem distinguishing them at all.
Again,
Simon, yes.
it could have just come down into the Pali when it had already made the change, couldn't it? But they inherited the word madja, and they had no idea whether it referred to maddening drink or honey. It just came down from, as it were, already lexicalized, just a fossil that they inherited.
That's very likely. I mean, if you ask the average Pali speaker of the time of the Buddha, what is the etymology of the word madja? What is the word madja is madja? What do you mean? What does it come from? As you say, already lexicalized by that stage. I'll have a look at it anyway during the break and see if I can discover any more. So we're 6 minutes past 8 now. So shall we just reconvene in 10 minutes, if that's okay with you all? Okay, reconvene in 10 minutes. Okay.
Stop the recording. Why you have to be in the recording? Please stop the
Hello, everyone. We're back. There we are.
Forgot to stop the recording.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalaka. I mean, Srinimala. Srinimala. Well done. I'll
But
stop.
still recording is going.
Oh, goodness me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was telling you already gone.
That's another thing, you see, to remind me to stop the recording
Yeah.
during our break. Otherwise, we get a kind of 10 minutes blank when I load it up, when I want to upload it. Okay, you tried, but I'd gone too quickly, had I, Srinamala?
Yes.
We just wait for Simon to rejoin us.
James, I had a question about Majja.
Majja?
Yes. Does that come from Madhya from Sanskrit?
I've just been checking. I've just been checking now in the break, because I realized that my mind has kind of jumped tracks. Firstly, Simon was right. Madhya, an intoxication. It is from it's from the mad root, meaning intoxication, exuberant joy. The same mad as in pamada and apamada. It's that same mud. What had caused my mind to jump tracks, I think, was the pure coincidence that it seems to be cognate with our English word mead, which is a honey wine. And honey in Sanskrit and Pali is madhu with a dh. That may be pure coincidence, but I can't see any relationship between mad, intoxication, and madhu, honey, madhura, sweet. It might be just pure coincidence that a word that derives from or has the same ultimate origin as the Sanskrit madhya, Pali madhya in English, is a honey wine, which is madhu in Sanskrit. But I think that's just pure coincidence there. For our word madhya, we can take to mean an intoxicant, and that would be firmly within the meaning of the root. So intoxicant, almost it's like a kind of exuberant but almost like a mental or an emotional intoxication, over enthusiasm, the whoopee charging off. It's the opposite of pamada, of course, is virtually treated as the opposite of sati, mindfulness. But anyway, thank you for pointing out that, Simon. So that was correct. So has this dealt with your point also, Shalaka?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So Suramirya Madhya Pamada Tana. Right, here we are. So the Madhya, which in Sanskrit is Madhya with a dy, is from the same root as mad, pamada, which we could almost think of as madding forth. I don't actually know whether our English word mad is actually etymologically related to the Vedic root mud, but they could well be, because both indicate kind of a loss of balance of your mind, a loss of control over your mind. Pamada is the kind of the infatuation with something, losing control and chasing after something, either through desire or fighting back against it with hatred and aversion. So pamada, effectively loss of type of that. Pamada, often translated as heedlessness, but it's the heedlessness captures, of course, only part of the story. Is the loss of is the madding forth, the rushing forth of the mind. This pra Sanskrit pa in Pali has this dynamic aspect to it. You've lost your mindfulness and you whoosh after something, having to that extent lost control of what you're doing. Thana, Sanskrit sthana, means a place. That's the basic meaning of it. It's from the root sta, meaning to stand. It's the same as our English word stand, and the Latin stare. In fact, in the modern Slavonic languages as well, Russian for to stand is stać. So it means a place. Incidentally, the countries ending in stan, from that, so the Uzbekistan, for example, is the stan, the place of the Uzbeks. So Tana, literally place. In this context, it means the occasion for something, or the place where something can happen or is likely to happen. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, people tend to translate this as like a basis for heedlessness, which is fine, and it can mean that. But if you look at Tana, I mean, as you say, it's more often a place or state, as in kind of, netam tanam vijjati and so on.
That's right.
But you much more easily and elegantly translate it as something like from the heedless state brought about by Sura, Merya, and Majja. So it's just like it just describes intoxication rather than a basis for the intoxication.
I'm not sure that I've seen Tana used as an actual state, as in the state of a person's body or mind.
It's pretty much the same as kind of a place, from the maddened place, by Surah, Merya, and Majja. It's kind of similar, isn't it?
It is kind of similar.
It doesn't need to be a basis, does it? It doesn't.
No, not a basis. Well, let me just put to the interpretation that I had. Being brought up as a Roman Catholic, we were, of course, routinely told that we had to avoid sin. Okay, fine, got that. But also to avoid what was known in our Roman Catholic doctrine as the occasion of sin. So the occasion of sin was a circumstance or a surroundings, an environment in which you would be more likely to fall into sin. And that in Roman Catholic doctrine, that was the occasion of sin. And I think that my own interpretation, I can't say that, I think Simon's one may be equally valid, but the one that I've preferred is that the Tana here is used for the occasion of, and because in the Roman Catholic sense, the occasion of sin, because it's because of the risk, because it enhances the possibility that you will behave in a pamatta way, that pamada will overcome you. So, I mean, if you have alcohol, it doesn't necessarily, and it's depending how used you are to it and how much you have and what the surrounding circumstances are. But it doesn't kind of automatically and always lead to pamada. But it's just, it's you know, a habit or a practice that will make it, that will enhance the risk. So, to go back to the Roman Catholic language, it is the occasion of pamada. It is a practice that will increase the risk of it happening.
Well, that's kind of my point, because if you can take, I don't know, I mean, some people say, don't they, that I take a small glass of wine and it doesn't affect my heedfulness. It's not saying avoid the basis for these, because if intoxicants are the basis for heedlessness, you're being asked to avoid the heedless state or the heedless condition.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at, netam tanam vijiti, it doesn't mean place. It means like this state is found. It's almost like a thing. This entity, this thing is found. It's much more general.
That's right, yeah. And for those who didn't get what Simon said, Nathan Tanang Vijiti, literally, this place is not found, or this place that does not exist, is a way of saying it's impossible for it to happen in Pali. So I think we could leave that open. I think it can mean both. And maybe, I mean, both simultaneously, possibly without even any conflict in the minds of the native speakers. Pamadakana. So in fact, they would be saying two slightly different things. One is to, on Simon's interpretation, to avoid that state of pamada caused by alcoholic drink, or to avoid alcoholic drink because you risk falling into pamada if you do.
I mean, even the cognate word, I mean, state must come from tana, star.
Oh, it does, indeed, it does, yes, yeah.
It doesn't just mean state in the political sense, like a stan.
Yes.
Like the condition or the quality.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you have persuaded me of the rightness of your argument, but I will put it alongside my interpretation and having equal status. Do you have any objection to that conclusion, Simon? You're always allowed to not knock me off my perch there.
I've never done.
So, Suramero Majapamata Tana. Interestingly, and I put a note here, I don't know how many of you read it, but when we're chanting this, I notice, and certainly in Manchester, and I think all the other Samatha chanters I've heard, when they're chanting this, they chant it with a double P. Suramere Majapamada Tana. Although in our chanting book it's written with a single P. The double P would be expected and entirely correct because it is pramada in Sanskrit. So just as we have pramada, apramada in Sanskrit, so equally pamada and apamada with a double P there. And the doubling would be justified by exactly the same phenomenon that gives us the doubling of the ta. It's not, which is pramadasthana in Sanskrit, so pramadastana with a doubled t in Pali. Is there anybody who has noticed the phenomenon in our regular Pali chanting, whether we chant it with a double P? And Francis, for example.
I think most people don't, that I've heard.
Oh, because my brain had always heard Majapamada, not Majapa, but Majapa.
I can't recall it. Yes.
Oh. I'm going to redouble my efforts of listening next time I hear this. Or maybe my brain was making me hear it because it would be linguistically and etymologically correct and expected for it to be a double T, in the same way it's linguistically and etymologically expected for it to be a double T in the Tana. It ought to make a difference. I mean, somebody ought to have noticed, I ought to have noticed it, because if you pronounce it with a double P, then you put a heavy syllable. And if you pronounce it heavy and everyone else is pronouncing it light, then you're kind of one beat out with everyone else. But there's some listening for me to do next time.
Because you'd have a gap, wouldn't you? So it would be Madjapama if it was double P.
Yes, you'd have. Yeah, it
Rather,
would still be a short vowel, but a distinct Madjapamada. Yes.
Rather than Madjapamada.
Yes.
Madjapamada, yeah.
So I don't think I've heard Madjapamada. I think I've heard Madjapamada.
All right. Okay.
I should be hearing it at our centre tomorrow morning, so I shall listen with great intensity to it and report back to you. And by the way, I've also checked in the various other Theravada chanting books I have, and they all write it with a single P. I'm just wondering whether it's just I've seen about three or four other chanting books, two of them from Thailand, with a single P, and I'm just wondering whether it's maybe by tradition it's become written with a single P, but possibly by tradition pronounced with a double. But this will remain an open question. Hopefully I'll be able to say something about it next time we're on the chanting book together. And okay, so that brings us to the end of the precepts. So before we move on to the if we can forget what's coming next. Lost my page. Anyway, before we move on to our next text, that shall shortly I identify, were there any comments or queries arising out of this? Okay, we can move on then. The material on page 3 of our chanting book, we have, of course, already done. That's the Itipiso, Swakato, and Supatipanno. We've done that in a previous lesson. So we can move on to the puja verses, starting at page 4 of our chanting book. I've done the analysis for you. Vandami chetyang sabbang sabbathane supatitang saririkadhatu mahabodhim buddharupang sakalang sada. So the root vandami, it means to praise. It's actually originally, I should say, this is an extended root of the Vad root that we've just been looking at from Vadvada, which is the ordinary root meaning to say. This is an extended root with an inserted nasal, that's just Vand instead of Vad, which has come to mean a saying of something, but in a praising way, and therefore praise. So Vandami. You'll also see it used in the middle form Vande without any difference of meaning. So most commonly you'll see Vandami, but sometimes you will see Vande. And for example, in the chant of the 28 Buddhas, you often see Vande instead of Vandami. There's no distinction of meaning. But Simon.
Is there another root that takes us? I mean, there's another verb, something like vancheti, which is to deceive or to lie to misrepresent.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. And there's that's right. There's the root vanch, you know, to cheat or to deceive. I don't think there will be any connection, but I will double check to see if there is. Let me just. Yeah. So paper. Let me just. I'll make a note here. Bunch. I'll check that one out for next time whether there was any connection. I think not, because we've got a different final consonant there, the ch instead of the d. It's quite normal for nasals just to drop in and out of roots, but not so normal for a d to change to a ch. So I think not, but I'll check the point.
It would be anyway very dispiriting if to deceive were strongly related to praise, wouldn't it?
It would be extremely dispiriting. So I hope that I will get a negative result. Academic honesty compels me to do the research anyway, and I shall truthfully report to you on it. But I suspect that it doesn't. So Vandami Chetyang Sabbam. The original meaning of Chetya is actually meant a mound, as in a memorial mound, you know, like the old-fashioned burial mounds. That was the original meaning. Oh, a cairn or a mound, something like that. And then, as time went on, by extension, it just came to mean any relic. Chetya, from the root chi. Chi, to heap up or to pile up. And one of my favorite words, because of course we have vichi, means to unpile, to unheap, and that gives us our verbal noun vichaya, as in dhamma vichaya, the analysis of dhammas. So the vichaya is literally unheaping. You've got a heap of things all together, in unheaping, a deconstructing. It's like taking things apart to see what they're made of. The analysis, to taking apart. So the vichaya is quite an expressive word in Pali. It means you've got something you might look at, you might think of as, you know, one solid block of something. But what we are encouraged to do in this bhujanga, this factor of enlightenment, is you know, to analyze, to take it apart, analyze it down into its components, so that we really understand it. So it's the vichaya, and it's the same root as the chetya, which is more connected with its original meaning. It's just something that's heaped up, a pile or a mound. and then used in the singular just is like a collective noun, just all relics and remnants of the Buddha. So Vandami Chetyang Sabbang, all that is left behind, all the reliquary that is left. Sabbatane supatipitam. Simon.
Sorry, about the Chetya. Chetya is the noun, is that right? That's the.
It is a noun, yes, a derivative noun from. I'm not quite sure if it exists in Sanskrit as well as Pali. I can check right now, actually.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it's to do with a future passive in, to be heaped up, or whether it's an absolutive, that which has been heaped up. Obviously, it would make more sense for it to be the latter. But the other point is, okay, I can understand that it would be all objects of veneration, but why is it therefore in the singular throughout?
Simon, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. I don't know. It's just one of those cases where it just is. But I'm actually calling it up now in the Pali, in the PTS dictionary. Let me see if I can just, should be with you in any second. Yeah. Yeah. It's not quite the right shape for a future passive participle. So it would be yeah. Okay, I've got this odd phenomenon where the PTS dictionary, when I share a screen with it, it just gives me a quarter of a page for a few seconds and then goes to the whole page. Here we are. Yeah, so from chi to heap up, so monument and so on. I missed something. It's here. It says one, but without, I don't spot a two anywhere. Maybe it's just an error in the way that it's come into the electronic version. That was possibly my gloss on it, because there's no reason why it shouldn't be used in the plural. It could be just used here generally as a collective noun, everything that has the status of relic. I would have been slightly happier if I'd seen it in the plural, but seeing it in the singular when it's clearly referring to more than one thing. I think that the logic and syntax compel us here to treat it as a collective noun.
It's got to be, but it's just odd. I mean, even in the second bit of the line, Tanesu is in the plural, but
Exactly so, yeah.
It's singular because
yeah. So then there's got to be more than one, because it's in the plural in various places.
Wherever there is.
Exactly so. And so I think we've just got to treat it as a slight anomaly, or just a collective noun, which we would have expected to find in the plural, but there it is. We're stuck with it in the singular. But clearly intended, well, explicitly stated to be in all places, therefore a plurality of things which are located in explicitly located in all places. So
something we can dismiss as being one of those vagaries of verse, especially something that may perhaps have been composed a little late.
You actually, that's I have to be a little bit strict with myself about adopting that interpretation, Todd,
Okay.
because I'll tell you why. Because in some of these chants, you do get things that you just can't make sense of. If in the primitive, in the earliest suttas, it almost all makes really good sense, and it's according with the grammar and logic and everything. In some of the later texts, particularly like devotional chants, you get things that you just can't quite understand, and sometimes it's just referable to people who didn't know Pali quite well enough, appear to have been composed by people who didn't know Pali quite well enough and were saying things in substandard Pali. Um, but that's an interpretation as a matter of self-discipline, I have to use very cautiously. Otherwise, I'll just find, oh, I can't understand it. It must have been composed by somebody who didn't know Pali properly, which I'm reluctant to do unless it's forced on me. Francis, please come in.
Well, I would suggest there may be an alternative reason that the Pali chants are immensely carefully constructed, not just to give you information, but to have an effect
Of course, yes.
on the mind and the body. And the way they do that is really remarkable because you don't have to know anything about Pali for them to have an effect. And one would expect sometimes, in order to do that, they might have to sort of have a little bit of license with the Pali in order to get the right effect. But anyway, that's another thought. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
it's because they're chanted really as much for the effect, and even in Thailand, I mean, very few people apart from the monks know Pali,
Of
but the
course,
kind
yeah.
of devotion and the effectiveness with which people chant them, and the helpful effect that they have on people is immense. Which is partly why translations of Pali chants don't really work as well, or don't work.
Absolutely.
So they
Yeah.
make it more meaning for people.
Yeah, that is a very good point, Francis. I mean, just like in English poetry, you get an English prose writer who wouldn't be allowed to take liberties, but with poetry, specifically poetry that's designed to have an emotive effect, liberties
Yeah.
will be allowed because everyone accepts that that's the effect that's being created. And for example, that chant, Imasamin Raja Se Mana Samanta, Imasamin Raja Se Mana Kete Samanta, that has got some distinctly substandard Pali in it. And I was quite worried. Look, if I'm really slipping, I can't get that. So I actually had a consultation with Valerie Roebuck, who was even more scathing about the substandard nature of the Pali in that little chant than I was. So this does bear it out. In particular, that one, because quite a number of people have said, well, "Can you give me an explanation of this little chant?" Because even people who don't know any Pali, it seems to have quite an effect on them.
Yeah,
It's a much loved chant among English speakers, who know Pali. I know about a number of people who come and ask me about it, which does entirely support the point that you've just made, Francis. So when we're doing our kind of academic style linguistic analysis, we just bear that in mind. We put it into English. Not only does it sound a little bit of a nonsense when we say it in English, a bit like translating arias of Italian opera into English. It sounds awfully clunky. But even more so when we translate these chants.
Another point is by a happy coincidence, you can have dana as foundational basis here, unlike the previous, or just like the previous one, because some it could say literally they're set up on all their bases. The locative works that way as well, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Particularly with a word like patitam, not just titam, standing, but patiktitam has more. That's more the sense of established or arrayed. It's like standing either firmly located in a particular place or arrayed in order in relation to one another.
Unlike the Buddha head at Green Street, which is now leaning a little bit to the right.
Is it?
It is.
Since then, since when did that start to happen?
Since I first went there in the last 7 or 8 years, yeah, it's got a slight tilt to it.
Oh.
So it's beginning to deteriorate.
So leaning to the right when you're looking at the face and with your back to the Green Street house.
Yes.
Oh, right. I'll have another look. I hope you haven't spoilt it for us all now. Oh, it's a wonky head. So Sabatane Supatitang. So here now we see the Patititang established or arrayed in the singular to agree with Chitiang. This does create a slight cognitive dissonance here with this singular noun, but this expressly plural in all places. But there we are. If we bear in mind the point that Francis has just been making, we can just not get too finicky about it. We can do our best to get to our academic, intellectual understanding of it. Having reached that point, then relax that, let it go, and sink back into the original language and the intention of it.
If it's a singular, though, it does make sense in that you can say the Chetiyam is some kind of symbolic representation of the Buddha established in all these different places.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. You've got the one Buddha, and all the different either actual relics or representation of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, in each of our shrine rooms in Manchester, we've got several Buddha, we've got several rupas, but all of the same Buddha in our shrine room. So Saririka Dhatu Mahabodhim Buddha Rupang Sakalang Sada. We've got another slight spanner in the works here because we've got Rupang here in the singular. So you can have an unlimited number of Rupani, all of the same Buddha, the same one Buddha, unlimited Rupani, but here it's expressed in the singular. So maybe now we should think of Rupa in this verse not as being an individual statue or physical object, but representation in general terms, as a collective noun. Everything that is Buddha form or Buddha likeness.
If it were singular, it would mean something like present in all its parts, wouldn't it? Like no bits missing from the rupa.
Rupam Sakalang, yeah, because Sakalang was also in the singular to agree with Buddha Rupam. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, yes. I'm aided here somewhat again by the Roman Catholic upbringing, where you have the consecrated host who is the divinity, complete and entire, although it may have existed in billions and billions of individual consecrated hosts. So, Saririka Dhatu Mahabodhing. I think now we're talking about three different categories of Chaitya. One, Saririka Dhatu. Category 2, Mahabodhim. And category 3, Buddharupam. So the Saririka Dhatu, literally bodily element, I take to mean the actual physical relics of the Buddha, that actually directly from the Buddha's body. Looking at Buddharupam there, that's clear enough. Something is not from the body of the Buddha, but is a form, a representation, a visible representation of him, like our ordinary Buddharupani that we have. And Mahabodhim, I interpret this to mean because literally the great enlightened Mahabodhi, but I think it's used to refer to the tree under which he was sitting. So the tree is given that name. So I found a little bit of difficulty in producing what would be to the modern analytical English speaker a satisfactory word-for-word accurate translation, but particularly in the light of what Francis has been saying, I don't think it matters that much. It's meant to produce an effect in us, and possibly we even spoil that effect by nitpicking over the grammar, as I've just been doing. However, look, as against that, it has its value, because I've very often found that where you get a text that's very difficult to understand, and if it's something, the same happens quite a lot in Chinese poetry, actually, but it also happens to a certain extent in Sanskrit and Pali. It's a bit difficult to understand. It's meant to have a kind of effect on you. So step one is just chanting it without knowing what it means, or knowing very roughly what it means. Step two, we don't get stuck on it, but it's used. Step two is what is the minute analysis, going as far as we can academically, tracing back to the roots as far as we can. Then, having gone as far as we can, as it were, plough that back into the soil, let that go. Don't get hung up on the academic detail, and then go into the approach of letting it work on you, as you chanted in the correct frame of mind. So there's no harm in the minute analysis, is my view, provided we don't get stuck on it. Just go as far as we can, and put that back, plough it back into our minds, and hopefully it will assist the chant to work in the way it's meant to. So this word saririka, it's an adjective. It's from the noun with a short sarira, meaning a body, and it makes an adjective saririka, bodily, corporeal. So that's the corporeal element. The use of that word explicitly indicates that it's actually from the Buddha's physical body. The word shari, there are three commonly used words for body, Sanskrit and Pali. The one that we're most used to is Gaya, in its nominative form Gayo, which is actually from the root chi, the same root chi we've just been looking at, to heap up or to pile up. So you could have it in the form chayo, but we have it as gayo. That's not quite a normal mutation. So that is body in the sense of, or under its aspect of, an accumulation. So the word kaya and kaya gata sati, body mindfulness, you're looking at the body in its aspect, not of one kind of unitary monolithic thing, but as an accumulation of a whole lot of different things. The word kaya means an accumulation. The other word, deha, is body in the sense of something that is molded and shaped, something that has a shape. Sarira, or sharira in Sanskrit, it comes from the root shri, meaning to rest or be supported by something. And so that is sarira, the body, looked at in its aspect as the support for the life of this. Is slightly going to the Hindu approach here, the body as the support, the physical support for this life on earth of whatever it is that undergoes rebirth. So you've got these three words all meaning body, but body under different aspects: the accumulation, the molded shape, and the support, as in the support for the life that is reborn. And sakala, well, kala just means a part, a constituent part of something. And if something is sakala, it just means entire, with part, in other words, with all its parts, nothing missing. Shalaka, do you use the word sakal in modern Marathi to mean entire or whole?
Sakal, not colloquially, but in poems, it is definitely used. Sakal.
Okay, right. Okay, so with that meaning, entire
Yes.
or whole. Okay, good. So here we have it. And so in Marathi poetry, it would be used in that same meaning, literally with part. So complete with all its parts. So thank you for that, Shalika. Simon again.
Just kind of a little personal and kind of bit from me. Just before your notes dropped, I was thinking, like, where does sakala come from? And I was thinking back to the very first online lesson I did with you, when we did kalam agati solasim is worth 1/16th part. And I thought, aha, the penny drops.
Oh, well remembered. That was quite some years ago, Simon. Yes. That's right. Was it something like that? All of your learning will not be worth 1/16th part of. So something like that, if I remember rightly.
It's the fool who eats with the tip of the kusa grass. So mase kusagena balo bunjeya bojanang. Naso sankata damanang kalang agati solasim.
1/16th part. Right, yes.
That may be
well remembered, Simon, yes. So remember this word kala with a short a, not to be confused with kala, meaning time or time in duration. It's like bala, strength, bala, fool, kala, part, kala, time. Now this word dhatu, it means, it's from the root dha, meaning to place, something where something can be placed, something where something has a basis. So the word dhatu In chemistry, it's used to mean an element. Even as far back as Panini, the Sanskrit grammarian who lived, I don't know exactly when he lived, but probably he was a contemporaneous with the Buddha. So the word dhatu means a root in the sense of a linguistic root. So the dhatu of dhatu is da. So and then it also means a realm. And when we consider, for example, body or indeed any material under the aspect of its four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, these are the four dhatus. So it's a bit of a wide-ranging meaning, but basically it comes back to the idea of the essential element or a realm of something, a basis for something. Simon.
So yeah, did you say that it's from da, as in to put or place, like as in dahati? Or I thought it would be more from like the root that we get dhamma from, that which holds or sustains things, because that which comes from it or is manifested. Is that the wrong way round?
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if it were, but in Sanskrit, the root there is dri, dh and subdotted r. It's that means to hold or to be firm, and that's from the dri that we get dharma, means that which is firm or solid. It's the original meaning of dharma, is that which is solid or firm. So you can say there's a certain kind of overlap in meaning between dharma and dhatu, but they are distinctly from different roots. I mean, no way can you get the root. This is, by the way, this word dhatu, identical in Sanskrit and Pali. You could not derive that from dri. You can't lose the ri from the Sanskrit root, which is why you get dharma in Sanskrit, which gives us the Pali dhamma.
You can get dharati and dhareti to like hold or to hold out. To hold
Exactly.
out.
Yes, that's right.
So why can't you get dhatu?
You can't, because in dhatu, what's happened to the r element? Sanskrit wouldn't allow you to use it, to lose it.
But dhamma doesn't have a r element.
That's an entirely different story. In Sanskrit, it is dharma with a dharma, and the reason it's dhamma in Pali is the separate phenomenon of the phonetic mutation of the consonant cluster rm in Sanskrit, which will routinely become a double m in Pali. So nice try, Simon, but on this one, I'm afraid I have to turn you down outright. The rules of Sanskrit will not allow it.
So
The rules of Pali can be a bit fluid, but not Sanskrit, not Sanskrit. And Sanskrit grammar, that's the guards on parade. It all happens in a certain way and no other. Jeremy, please.
Yes, just one thing I was wondering about with the third of these chetiyas is that I think for quite many centuries you didn't actually have representations of the actual Buddha himself. You had things like an empty seat.
That's right. Yes.
And I was just wondering, these verses, I'm assuming they come from the time of the Buddha. In which case, then I was wondering, well, you've translated Buddha Rupam Sakalam Sada as all images of the Buddha, but I was looking on the Pali Text Society dictionary for Rupa, and I was just trying to see whether they talk about form or principle of form. So as I say, I was just wondering if there was a way, or if it would be accurate to think of the third one, the Buddha Rupam, not necessarily as an image of the Buddha himself, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I like what you say there. I'm inclined to go along with it. And it's like a form, not in the sense of a Buddha Rupa as we know it. You know, Buddha, yeah, that is in a statuette of the Buddha, but anything that has form but just represents the Buddha. So, um, and I've done it in two ways here. In the first part of the gloss, Rupam form, but Buddha Rupam, all images of the Buddha. Um, Yeah, I agree with you. Let's not kind of fasten ourselves too tight. So we all know that in modern times, Buddha Rupa is the word that we use for an actual physical statue, a visible representation of the Buddha. But certainly Rupa can just mean form generally. Well, look at our phrase Nama Rupa, which is used in kind of the name and form, not a particular form, but that mentality, materiality generally. So the answer is yes, I agree with you that there's no reason why we shouldn't apply that same kind of meaning of rupa, as in nama rupa, to everything that has form in a general sense. So, as so often happens, we think we're dealing with a relatively simple bit of language, and just so much arises from it. So, was there? Oh, we're almost on time now. Was there anything else arising out of this before we wind up?
Just a
Yeah,
quick
please, Todd.
question. Again, with Dhatu as element, it seems like Dhatu always has the quality of element in the sense of cannot be divided further. Does that track with the various meanings of Dhatu?
Broadly speaking, I think it does. I'm a little bit cautious about giving a definitive answer to that.
Sure.
Oops. Um,
I think what Todd just mentioned is called Mula Dravya.
Mula dravya, yes, a kind of a root substance.
Yes, that is
Mula
something that
dravya,
cannot be divided
yes.
further. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm just here called up what the PTS dictionary says about it. It stops misbehaving on my screen. Hopefully, it will give us in a moment There we are. Okay, so it gives it the meaning number one for dhatu, primary element. Usual set comprises the four. That's, as I was mentioning, earth, water, fire, and air. Look at what it says here in the blurb about closely related to Dhamma in meaning, only implying a closer relation to physical substance. So we do have this kind of overlap in meaning, but the rules of Sanskrit prohibit us from saying that they're actually etymologically related, unless you can go a little step back into prehistory. By prehistory, I mean pre-Vedic, but not pre-Proto-European. You do get a number of roots that are derived from other roots. And it's not impossible that dri could have been a derivative of dha, even though by the time of Panini and by the time Vedic and Sanskrit established themselves with all their rules, they had already become separate roots. We're kind of stuck with that. But it's by no means impossible that at an earlier stage of the language, they did in fact derive from the same root. I don't actually know whether it did or not, but I would not be surprised to discover that was in fact so. Jeremy.
Yeah, sorry, just a sort of a technical question on the Pali Text Society dictionary. In your study resources guide, there's a link for it, which doesn't seem to be working.
Ah,
And I've been struggling because there's one version of it. I mean, there's one on the University of Chicago website, but there's the one that I think you normally use. And if you want to find the root of a verb, you use like two colons and then whatever you're looking for.
yeah, two colons, then space.
Each space,
And so
yes.
what that doesn't take you to the root, it takes you to the head word.
Well, sorry, yes,
So
yeah.
which is how they've done it here. So the two colons and
Yes,
then the space,
it's
yeah.
exactly this one you've got up here, you see, because when I try and sort of locate this using that internet address, I keep getting errors for it.
Oh,
But
um, that shouldn't happen.
so all I was going to ask was whether when you had a moment, you could have a look at the link in the study resources guide, because I had the same problem with that.
Oh, um, so what I'll do, let me just check that. It may be that it's a different link because there's this one that I've got bookmarked on my own computer,
Mm.
which could be a different link because sometimes your links come and go. Hang on, where's my story? Here we are. I'll be able to tell you just in a few seconds. Mhm.
So I think it's page 42 or something for the
Thanks.
dictionaries.
Page 42 of the study
Of this,
resources
of your
guide.
study resources guide, I think.
Um,
Around about there. Sorry, I might have misled you. I looked at it just before the class started.
yeah, um, lost it. No, it'll be under external resources. Come on.
So
External resources,
Oh, yeah,
Pali
40, yeah, it is 41. Yeah, page
41
41.
Pali dictionary. Let's sort this out now, because
So,
otherwise,
so, just as a tip, the other way to access it is just to Google oboe, OBO, and the new word genud, GENAUD, and then dictionary, and that will take you to a link to it.
right. Oh yeah, okay, that's correct. So the one that um, obo.geno.net/back matter.
It's just I found several of my
Glossology.
saved links didn't work, you see, so I was wondering whether somewhere.
This is odd because I'm looking at the link that I've got in my study resources guide, which is identical to the link that I've got in my kind of bookmark section. And the one I've got in my bookmark section on my computer, invariably works perfectly, although it is the same link. But if you have a problem, I suggest follow the suggestion that Francis has just given.
Yes, I'll try. I'll
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, thank you.
But it's odd that you say that now because I've just checked. It's exactly the same link I've put in the study resources guide.
Is it possible that there's a space that is slipped in to the link itself? Well, anyhow, never mind.
Okay, that's always possible. And normally, I think we all do. If you find a working link, you just copy it and paste it into wherever you want to paste. So that should avoid the risk of accidental spaces slipping in. But although you're right, Todd, just one little space slipped in, and the system won't recognize it. There we are. That will be a slight mystery, but at least we have a way around it. In my own case, as I say, I have it as a regular bookmark within my own system, and that invariably works perfectly. Okay, well, we've got to 9:20, so shall we chant the blessing and wind up for the evening? Unless there were any other questions or comments arising. Okay.
I
Shalika.
just So the chants I have been chanting since childhood, and I just knew the overall meaning, but not the word to word meaning. And I was very curious about some of the words like Veramani. It was quite a mystery for me. What is Veramani exactly?
Right. So, well, I hope the mystery is now resolved for you.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
that's what we're here for, Shalika. I'm glad it's worked for you. Okay, let's just chant the blessing. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada suti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada suti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanu bhavena sada suti bhavantu te.
Hey.
Sadhu,
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 sadhu.
sadhu.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you for joining me, and we'll be
Right,
back on Tuesday.
right.
Okay,
Thanks,
take care.
James.
James.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Bye. Bye, Shalika.